And then let's see. Share. Go. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining. It's our July club meeting. Hope you all had a good weekend. So we'll get started with our regular club business like we normally do first. And then Tom's going to be presenting both of our main topics tonight. It's going to be giving a recap of our club field day activities. And then the main topic will be satellites and RTLSDR dongles. So looking forward to that. It should be interesting. Let's see. Jojo, I saw you were on. Are you able to present tonight, or do you want me to do a recap for you, do an overview of your slide?
Oh, hi, Kevin. Yes, I can present for a brief while. Thank you.
Okay.
But I don't have a computer right now. If you can pull up the presentation, please.
Yep, it's up on the screen. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending the River City ARCS General Membership Meeting tonight. It's Tuesday. My name is Jojo, KN6HTD, and I'm presenting the Treasurer's Report for tonight. We are happy to say that our club membership is always growing. Currently, we have 189 members, and that's an additional 3 from the month of June. We are 68% paid up in 2022, and thank you for your membership payments as well as with our new members. So I wonder if our new members are here. Let us welcome Andres Berman, KN6BER, Darren Fitch, WW6BF, and Charles Moody, KD6EGD. Are any of those new members present? Oh, okay. I don't hear anything, but Darren was present in our field day
in progress
event. So welcome, new members. We move on to our finances. Our bank balance is 8,640.91, and that is consistent with what appears in our books. We don't have, I don't think, oh, I mean, we still have our UHF connection for the All-Star and the Echolink down. I just received notification that we're getting a replacement UHF repeater. I mean, UHF rig. So I think Carol can tell us more about that update later. Our repeater fund is 3,076.64. So thank you for all those who have contributed, especially on a monthly basis for the Evergreen donation program. That is a pledge of at least $10.80 per month for at least 12 months. And you will get a recognition plaque. We sent out 2 to our recurring members, David and Lawrence. So thank you. For our agenda items and recent news, that will be for the next part with Tom. And if you can pull up the images there, those are just representative images. You can look up the rest of the images, I think taken by Carol at our website. And that is all. Thank you very much. Oh, yes.
I have some monies to give you. I was given some money to donate to the repeater along with the new membership at field day. Plus we have the monies from the items that we sold at the swap meet. Plus I have bills for the food from field day. So maybe we can email each other and figure out a time to get all that stuff to you, or do you want me to just mail it to you?
Let me think about that, as I could travel just to meet you both to make things easier as well.
We could do another Starbucks.
Yeah, I think that's a good
Yeah.
idea. Okay, and any other questions or concerns?
There's a question in chat. Is the repeater fund balance part of the total bank balance?
Yes, it is. So the total balance is broken down to general fund and repeater fund, for which the repeater fund is 3,076.64. Doesn't look like it's balanced. I will double check on that.
You said there'd be no math.
I
Subtract
addressed
the
Phil's
two.
concern about the expenses incurred during the antenna build. So that has been sorted out in our income and expenses spreadsheet.
Excellent.
Did that shower feel good?
All right. Thanks, Jojo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Carol, you're able to give us our regular website update and social media?
Certainly. I also want to just say that Echolink has not been down. Actually, Echolink has been up. Chris Huber, N6ICW, figured an alternative radio link to keep the Echolink alive. So it's still going now. The thing was our UHF link radio that's dedicated normally for Echolink and All-Star was malfunctioned. It was sent away for in-warranty repair, and it actually is on the way back. It's already been shipped back from, I believe it's somewhere in Missouri, coming over by UPS. So it should be back online very soon. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Oh, very good. Okay, this is the web resource report for June 2022 for the River City ARCs. This is the past month reports for our web resources. Okay, a reminder that our website is n6na.org. And we try to keep it up to date with all of the oncoming events for the club and also in this area. And information about our meetings, of course, and nets and all resources having to do with the club. So we do recommend you go there if you're looking for any information about our club. Thanks again to the website design team who have helped tremendously in keeping this up to date. Just to mention about our nets are on Wednesday nights. Tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Pacific time, our 2-meter net will meet on 145.25 repeater. And that net is also accessible via Echolink, N6NA-R, or also All-Star node 53410. At 8:30, we have the 10-meter upper sideband net, 28.420 megahertz upper sideband. Everyone's welcome to join there. It's a frequency that's accessible to all licensed classes, including technicians. And sometimes we get interesting band openings, and we have stations from all around the United States join us on the net. So you'll never know, you might be surprised. And Australia too. Yeah, we've had check-ins from Australia. The slow scan television net at 9 p.m. That's on our 441.30 repeater. And it also streams on our YouTube live channel. And there's a link for that on our website, n6na.org. Report of website activity for June 2022. The total number of visits to our website increased over the past month. In May, it was 1,151, and June it was 2,750. So we had quite a spike there of visits on June 23rd. You can see Thursday we had 1,202 page views that particular day. And I don't know what specific thing might have had to do with that. Maybe it was because it was before the field day weekend, I'm guessing. The most visited pages, home page, 1,870 views. Field day page was 124 views. Magnetic loop antenna page was 85. Then our repeater page and our nets page followed. As far as the sources where people are coming, how they're getting to our website, 61.2% of all the visits were directly to our n6na.org address, URL. And then Google referred 28.2%, and the rest came from other search engines and other referrals. Most of the visits, of course, came from the United States. California was a source of 1,359 visits. England had 41, Washington 25, and then all these other countries that you see on the map here, tinted in blue, also had a number of visits to our website. We get visits from all over the world. As far as our social media is going strong, our YouTube channel had 473 views last month. We now have 375 subscribers. We have 608 followers on our Facebook page, 149 followers on our Twitter page, and there are 30 members to our Discord chat server. And if any members want to participate in the Discord chat, just let us know. You can send us an email to contact@n6na.org and we can get you signed up for that. It's a nice little intercom system in real time for members that want to chat with each other. And let's see, next. Moment. Okay, and this is just a reminder. Again, if you want to get in contact, send any email, notify anybody on the board of directors or any of the officers, you can send an email to contact@n6na.org and we will direct it to the individual. So that's the end of my report. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carol. All right. Before we move on to the main topic, are there any announcements or news items or anything that anyone wants to share? None heard. All right. Okay. Tom, should we hand over to you?
Sure. Let me change my background so that you know I'm talking about field day. So let's try this. I have last year's field day as a background choice. Supposedly that showed up just now. So
It's
you should
there.
see T-shirts and bags from last year. And let's see if I can share this to you. Oh, also, we have been discussing how to improve field day. This year, we, like an emergency event, we had a very short time to organize field day. Things did not go like clockwork this year, so we were still trying to figure out who would do what throughout June, and the event was the 25th. So we've got more discussion, perhaps we'll talk about that at the end. And let's see if I can share screen here. Desktop, share. Boop. And then now Zoom is in my way, so let's get that out of the way. You're seeing a desktop that looks like a Mac, perhaps?
Yep.
All right. And then unfortunately, the thing I need to click on is underneath my little display. Let's see if I can find the right folder. There we go. Field day, found it. And let's play it. So field day results 2022. I made a quick a bunch of slides in PowerPoint and tried to recognize people. And I think toward the end, I'm going to try and use Discord because that's where I threw up some pictures that Sylvia had that was easy for me to do. And we can talk why you would use Discord. Hopefully, if people actually get into the chat program, not only can you chat interactively, you can actually ask questions. So I've kind of found it as kind of an Elmer session for, I don't know who to talk to. So you throw out a question or a topic that you're working on, and we are all surprised and we learn a lot about what people are up to, other than if we can actually get face-to-face coming up. So that'll be fun. So the next slide I had was the same as last year. I had this guy walking kind of a tightrope between two air balloons. And then I put in the sort of the post-pandemic part 2. Last year we thought, okay, we're good. It's going to be no problem in 2022. COVID will be behind us. but that was not the case. So it is always good to work field day outdoors. The rules allowed you to work from home. So if you did work from home and made some contacts, you can upload your results to the ARRL field day site. And if you would like, include that you're a member of the River City ARCS Club, and we will get more points to add into our total. I know Kevin had worked from home, and I'm thinking you did that, Kevin. So thank you. And anybody else that worked field day and worked some people. I know that the people in their giant home stations were like this giant lighthouse, and we were little flies flying around trying to get a contact with the big guns. And so they draw a lot of people. They're strong and loud on field day. And I'm sure Kevin was as well. So we tried to do some new things for 2022. We got a club beam. No longer do we have to hoist a beam that weighs a ton and try and get it up onto a tower and then find we're missing parts. So we have a new beam. It's made out of wire, and we found we were missing parts, but we kind of worked around that. So we, as an emergency exercise, we found ways to get the antenna onto the tower that we have, in spite of the beam being too small to fit on the mast. So we worked around that. We actually sacrificed a piece of the old beam we used last year to hook them together. And a little drilling here and there, we made it work. We used a bunch of wires up into trees for other bands. The hex beam that we bought actually works on 7 different bands, but of those, there's only 3 that we use for field day. We use 10 meters, 15 meters, and 20 meters. So that kind of covered the voice side of those bands. And then we put a bunch of wires to also allow a CW operator to work on 20 meters as well as 40 meters at the same time. We also added somewhere on this list, a experimental vertical beam, and try that out. So if you actually have an antenna and you really want to see how it's going to work, we'll stick it up there and see what happens and see how well it works in the field. We used a wireless hotspot for connecting all the computers together. And that hotspot allowed us to actually, in real time, send our results, if you were following along, to contestonlinescore.com. So I think Kevin, I saw his results were in there as well. So he was also using the field day software N3FJP and sending up the data to that location. So that worked. We also, in order to use the hex beam for 3 different transmitters, we actually used something that we had last year, but we didn't get a chance to use. We have a triplexer that isolates using the 10 meter, 15 meter, and 20 meter with 3 different radios, and supposedly independently working them and not overlapping. And we had some mixed results on some of the bands, mainly between 10 and 15. On the plus side, 10 and 15 meters really didn't work, so it didn't really matter. 10 meters, we got a few contacts that were line of sight, all the people in Sacramento who were like Kevin, who could hear us and gave us some points. And 15 meters kind of worked. We got a few out of state contacts, but on 10 meters, 0. And 20 meters was the go-to band for both our CW operator and our voice operator. And then we had a successful 80 meter setup this year where it didn't blow up my my tuner. And so we made some contacts on 80 meters to supplement our total. We tried to operate 5 transmitting stations all at the same time. And we didn't have enough people to actually man them all, but we had them. So sometimes we had enough people to operate at all 5 at once. And then we had 5 computers to try and work all at once. All our meals were prepared on site. We didn't know how many people were coming. That was part of not well planning, but we had plenty of food. I think everybody didn't go away hungry. What else do we have on here? Lots of wires in the trees. Phil has a tennis ball launcher, and we used it liberally to use all the trees that were available. And we kind of squished on a little gazebo that has shade and fans, and I've got a picture of that a little later. So we needed volunteers for field day. I know that the normal suspects were not even available for the general meeting to talk about field day. So we were looking for volunteers, and Bill N60F volunteered to be our field day captain. So he said, okay, good. Now at the beginning of June, we have somebody that would be the go-to person. And he brought all the things he could possibly bring. He's well stocked on doing setups outdoors. So he had quite a set. Maybe he can describe it, but he's got a go box with his radio in it, computer self-contained, lots of batteries and several antennas just in case. Sylvia Stork, my wife, was doing the meals, and and look at that, I got her call sign wrong. She's Kilo Sylvia 6 Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, but she's been W-ized in this particular slide. Ignoring that. She is proud of that. Actually, she's now a license plate holder with that call sign, the correct one. We had lots of people that came by and signed the guest list. We had 35 signing the guest list. If you were present, hopefully you got a chance to write it down. I know that there were couples or groups of families that came and they just kind of put their own name in. So maybe we had more people show up. Phil Sitter was the head of the launch ball crew. We set up our antennas on Friday, and there was a group of 9 people that were doing that. So we had a good turnout in getting the antennas up and in place. So then we only had to worry about setting up the radios, the tables, and whatnot on Saturday. The official starting time was Saturday at 11 o'clock for the event. And that's where we actually could get on the radio and start counting points. So before that, we had to cover, getting breakfast, getting everybody and other equipment there. And that part, it kind of works out every year. You can rely on people to lend a hand, and it worked pretty well. The thing that didn't work well, this is the F over F2 plot from Boulder, Colorado. It indicates over the last 7 days propagation. And the way this works is there is a transmitter in Boulder, Colorado. It transmits straight up. And if it gets reflection back, they jot down the highest frequency they get back that's reflected. So you can see on the start of the red line here, start of Saturday, we were getting a reflection back, maybe 6.5 megahertz. The reality is that is actually not the maximum usable frequency. Usually you can take this plot, multiply it by 3, and you've got muff. So I'm not even sure if that's their algorithm, but it works pretty spot on. So you can see we started out a little over 18 megahertz. So you would say that it kind of worked for 15 meters, but it wouldn't work for 10 meters. We didn't quite get into the frequency range that we'd like to see on this, which would be closer to 10 megahertz for 10 meters to work. But you can see a big dip around, this is in universal time. So 10 o'clock universal time, even 20 meters wasn't working. And we kind of noticed that right off the bat when the contest started, that we could hardly hear anybody on our usually the magical band, 14 megahertz. So let's see if that's 4 times 3. Yeah, so we started out where we could probably hear, but toward the middle and the end, the band dropped out. So then we had to rely on 40 meters and 80 meters to actually work. And so the thing I wanted to point out here is that the green is where we were at, and then field day started, and boom, we were kind of limboed into the red here, considerably lower propagation at that time. And there's reasons for that. I think I had to do with sunspots actually. So we had some dropouts. So that didn't work well, but we still got a lot of contacts. Given that I'm talking about contacts, we made some notable long distance ones. I think I skipped one now. Let me see. Well, that's good enough. So on FT8, we worked Australia, Japan, and on sideband on 20 meters, we worked Spain, which was kind of cool. So the hex beam was, even though poor propagation, we were able to hit Europe from California, which is pretty rare. And in CW, we our notable DX long distance stuff was South America, which you would kind of expect. Some Chile and Ecuador in there, but we also got New Zealand. So I'm assuming that happened at night. And usually from California, going over the ocean, we can get multiple bounces off the ionosphere, off the ocean, and do maybe 3 skips and get the far off countries of Australia and New Zealand. So those were the notable for long distance. And I've got some, let's see if this will work. I'm going to try clicking on and go into another program. Let's see what happens.
There was a question about the maximum and minimum wattage on the long distance DX contacts.
Yeah, we were running on battery power. And during the day, I think with solar panels, I think all of us were trying to use 100 watts. But at nighttime, we crank it down to half that because we're no longer able to charge our batteries, and we'd like to work most of the night. So I personally crank my radio down to 50 watts overnight. And Bill, did you do the same, or did you keep the power up?
Oh, as soon as I was off the solar panel, I dropped to 50 watts. And then when I ran FT8, I ran 25 watts.
All right.
So all my
FT8
FT8 contacts were 25 watts.
FT8 is kind of magical in that usually you can be in the weeds of signal strength and still be heard. So that you can kind of get away with lowering the power and they'll still hear you. So that's the kind of the cool parts of using that for digital. And I think CW actually has some advantages. You can't always understand a voice, but you can get a dit dot out of nothing. So on our Discord channel, I have this. Let's see. It's going to be tiny. Is that actually see? We'll go with the pictures here. So is that seeable?
Yeah, it looks
So the
good.
first picture is captioned. Of the 35 people, 2 people wanted to do a fox hunt. These were the 2. So we ended up instead showing off the antenna farm and how we were set up. So in that little direction are some of our wires, including an inverted V for 40 meters. I think that's about the time when that photo was taken. And that on the right is little me. And I don't know who the 2, I can't see their faces. So yeah, if those are you, let me know if it was, who are those other 2 tiny pictures of people in the background are there. I think this is overlooking the 15-meter station through the gazebo. So it was shady in there, sunny out there on the far outfield there. Let's see if I can scroll. Here we go. This next picture is after dinner, after we had burgers and chips and potato salad and stuff. So some of the faces that you may recognize from field day, we had Mike, K7 GFM. He's the nearest table, looking kind of with his elbow on the table. Next is James, KN6 QNJ. He's in the cowboy hat, I guess, and a blue shirt. And then we had Alfredo. He's in the dark shirt. So he was given he had a dark shirt. He was tough because it's actually hot out there. We were 100 degrees. So he's not bothered by heat as much as the rest of us. He did better in the heat. And then Darius is in white, nice color. I recommend wearing white for field day. And so that's, I think, post dinner. I think there's only chips left on the plates mostly there. Some more faces that were out there: Marie and Dave, Ken and Catherine, and then somebody I didn't know. So I could say that Dave has got his back to us, but he's in red. Catherine is in the blue shirt. Ken is. Yeah.
Tom, this is James. That's Eric Walton. He's from
Okay,
Yuba. He
thanks.
came down from Yuba City. KN6 QQT.
All right, Eric Walton. I'll put, can I type? Let's see, edit. All right, I'll remember.
You could just put Eric unless you want his call sign too, but yeah.
All right, you're gonna watch me edit, watch this.
We're watching. Oh yeah, you don't need that anymore.
Eric, all right, we got it in there.
Okay.
And then here is our 20-meter station. Bob has a kind of a radio in a box, and that's usually nicely set up. And so this is Catherine operating the radio for 20 meters and Tom pointing at the screen. I don't know why at the time. let's get back to scrolling. Doot. There's this same situation. I should note that second day of field day, you should wear a hat. This is the first day. Your hair gets pretty scraggly. I think I should have been wearing a hat then too. Also, it doesn't show gray. So there's some other people in the background. We had a Ken Cooley, our state assembly, come by and visit. I think he visited all of the Sacramento area. So he wore his last year's field day shirt, which I kind of started out in the background for me. So there's somebody saying, "Hey, look, it's Ken Cooley," and we have James in the background and Sylvia in the foreground pointing with a big smile on her face. Also, we have the club banner up there. So yes, we are River City ARCS. So you'll know who we were. There's another look of that same area, kind of far off. This is near the VFW hall. The idea was that if you got overheated out there, we wanted you to go inside to the VFW hall and cool off. So if we didn't point that out, we would like you, if you get hot, not stay out there and operate in the heat. We'd like you to cool off, get something cool to drink inside and recover. And so, because as I said, it was a hot day, and it usually is. Here's a picture of Darius and Alfredo working 40 meters. Here is me, Whiskey 6 Bravo Sierra, on 10 meters at the edge of the sun, kind of the hot side of the gazebo. And not really talking to anybody. I was saying CQ equivalent, CQ field day. And that was what I got to say for a little bit. And here was the hot side of, hot in the contact side of things. This was Bill N6EF doing logging at the time. For 20 meter CW, he had the most contacts again this year. And early morning on 20 meters, we had Neil come out. And so Neil is sitting in the chair with, I don't know, a baseball hat maybe? Red Bill anyway. And then Ken at the picnic table, there's Bob sitting in front of his radio, and Catherine, a new ham that needs, well, we'd like to hear what her call sign turned out to be. She's a new ham. She didn't know what it was at the time. And there's a tiny me at the 10 meters saying, Sylvia was yelling at me to look over. So I looked over. She does that a lot because she's related to, her dad was a bee photographer. I think she's inherited the photo gene. And I like this photo that turned out, I think, pretty well. So at the end of day Saturday, with brake light illumination, we have a picture of the gazebo. It's finally cool. There's on the right is the hex beam and tiny. And then we have this flagpole. And I think every year we discuss, can we make that flagpole an antenna? But we haven't done it yet. But yeah, we eyeball it. And the nice thing of the gazebo is that it has lights for nighttime and it has fans for keeping you cool. That brings us to Sunday, and we had breakfast, and there's the bacon cooking. And as I said, Bill works really hard, so he was making contacts during breakfast. I think the rest of us were still stretching and trying to wake up. And he didn't go with the hat. I think the second day I was definitely in hat mode to cover up what looked like, how did my hair end up looking like that? So, instead of a weird mad scientist, I covered up. And we had Carol visit late at 11 o'clock on Saturday evening. She came by the next day and she looks more refreshed here. She was, we were all tired at that time. And we have Ken as well in this picture. And that's this is Discord. If you actually took photos and we would like to see them, we can get you on Discord. It's pretty easy to upload. You just click this little GIF thing and it brings you up a menu and you say, okay, here's the photo. So if you can get your computer or your phone to transfer stuff pretty easy by just clicking GIF.
I think though that we want the photos in the Google Drive.
Yeah, for year to year, we want to get all these photos on our website so we can see them all together. But this may be a convenient way to get them up there. Let's see, where did I do with presentation again? This is it. Boop. All right, so how did we do? This is a composite of contacts that we made for bands, with phone being voice, digital being FT8, and CW being Morse code. And then the band is the wavelength of that we were using for field day. So and then there's finally a percentage, so you can kind of see that our money band was 20 meters. We had 68% of our contacts on 20 meters. Though I thought 40 meters would work better, we did not have a lot of contacts on 40 meters. I would think that would be the second highest, and it is, but not by a lot. We worked all 24 hours on 20 meters, although 20 meters kind of dies off in the evening, and we worked 24 hours on 40 meters. So you would think they would be the largest total, but it really didn't work that way. 80 meters kind of starts working after 6 p.m. in the evening, and so we actually got a lot of 80 meter contacts in relative to what we did on 40 meters. The bands that were not working very well, 15 meters, we got 4 contacts, but they were out of state, which was kind of cool. And on 10 meters, we had no out of state. They were all Sacramento area. We had 5 contacts. And then I think Bill ended up working 2 meters. So he actually made a 2 meter FT8 contactor, I believe.
Actually, that was to Carol.
Oh, to Carol, okay. And so you can compare it to last year. What did we do? Well, 20 meters was also working the best at 67%. 40 meters was the second band, a little higher percentage. We had 92 contacts. So I'm not sure why that was. Maybe the antenna is different and it's a different year, but that's the way it turned out. We have a map picture on the right here of the colors of the states. So we got Alaska, Hawaii. We missed out in the middle of Canada. That's that white. So if they're not colored, those are states we miss. Canada states are included. So we got that didn't happen. And for the United States, we did not get Michigan for whatever reason. So in the Great Lakes area on the right, let's see if I can't really point. We didn't get anything. And Virgin Islands is considered a state, I guess, for field days. So we didn't get Virgin Island. And I think what else did we get? Looks like Massachusetts was an opening and Delaware. So almost got a clean sweep. I thought we did really well though. And to the bottom right is kind of what we were looking at. This is how we log field day. This is what we looked at. You put your call, your class, and your section, and then they pop up on results of hundreds of contacts up in the top pane of that little graph. So what did we learn? We got 35 visitors, but we missed some. So we did have a sign-in sheet. I thought though that when somebody signs in saying they were there, they don't necessarily sign on all the members of their family. So maybe we can point that out next year, that we'd like to get everybody's name in and we'll count them as being there. We did find that we needed wider spacing of our antennas. Having the CW operator and the voice operator on the same band interferes with each other. So getting the antennas farther apart next year would probably be worthwhile. We kind of discussed this in our board meeting, and maybe I can get other people's thoughts too. I thought that we may need a higher 40 meter antenna to actually get more 40 meter contacts, possibly. We compared to the previous year, our logging for the computer setup for logging was on time. So that was actually successful. We didn't miss out on the first 10 minutes of the contest. We do need to announce publicly that our club is out there. There is a ARRL locator that Bill set up, indicates that we were there and a contact. And we also, on social media, on Facebook, there is a field day group. and I'm a member of that. So I posted that where we were going to be operating. So we were on at least Facebook on social media. We do need we always think we need a welcome person to make sure that somebody comes in and nobody talks to them. That's bad. So we want to make sure that to greet everybody and say hello and ask them what they know about radio and what we're doing. And so that's always worthwhile. We do need more operators. I would think after the first hour or so, everybody's burned out in the heat. So if we could get people that want to get on the radio, we'll put you on the radio. I mean, it would be nice. So, and there are people that are afraid to get on the radio, so we can get through that as well. There was new faces. I've not seen a lot of our new members. And so I got to meet them in person on field day. That was kind of nice. And so that was good to see everybody again. And even though we're still kind of in a pandemic, but outdoors was I felt safer. And we had some shade issues on the west side. So we talked about putting out shade tents to kind of extend the pavilion out that side to keep the sun off of the people and working those sides. And that was the thoughts of it. And here is our submitted results that I stuck in on last Sunday. We had a score preliminary of 2,322 points. And then all the information they want for field-based scoring. And that's what I got for field day. So let me.
Tom, I think James has a question.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. A question and an observation. I uploaded 23 contacts for voice on 40 meters from home.
Okay.
On battery power. I don't know if there's a way for you to check to make sure those got into our score. I'm not sure how that all happens.
Okay. Well, I can say that did you upload them on the ARRL field day site?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. I can look for that. I didn't look for that yet.
Okay. I know it's not much, but a little contributes. One of the things I'm wondering would be helpful is if we had headphones at each station for next year, depending on how close we are. But I think sometimes it got a little noisy, and maybe it would be helpful if we operated with headphones and maybe sanitizing wipes or something after. I'm not sure if that is practical, but it's just a suggestion.
I would second that. I had a hard time with CW. So what I ended up doing is I put my earbuds in my ears and also my headphones running both at the same time. And I still had a difficult time because of the background noise. So even with the volume cranked all the way up, it still had a hard time at times.
Yeah, the idea, I guess, in past field days is that you would have a logger and an operator. So the logger has to hear what's happening. So you would have to work with two sets of headphones. If you're just doing it yourself, which is kind of how things turned out, that works. I did bring my own headphones and I used them for 80 meters in the evening, mainly because people were trying to sleep. I thought I would interrupt them. And I know that I did see Bill with his headphones on as well. If you have a set of headphones and you're not on your own radio, might as well give it a try and see if we can hook it up. I have a Heil Pro 7 with some adapters, but it's my own headset. And I had a hand microphone. And we had last year brought in wipes. I think this time we mostly had the squirt bottles of hand sanitizer. Sylvia, did we bring any wipes this year? No, okay. We'll do that. I know that Phil might have some stuff to talk about field day as well. We were trying to get ahead of coordinating field day. So Phil, you want to talk about what we discussed in our board meeting?
Yeah, a couple of things I should mention here. In today's mail, I got a QSL card from W8WB, Will Browning in Amanda, Ohio. It was a CW contact. And I'm sure he's looking for a reciprocal QSL card. I don't know if we've ever gotten into the business of having our own QSL cards. That's something that we need to take up. I just want to say this. I thought we had a great setup team. James jumped in, Darius, a new member, jumped in. Bill, of course, was all over it. Mike Harrison was there. We had a number of people pitching in to get those antennas up. We put up 5 antennas in 5 hours. And I think they all performed fairly well. The common theme seems to be this year that conditions really compromised field day for practically everyone. I haven't heard any bragging about how great band conditions were. So, you know, you can only do what you can do. We came up with a couple of ideas for next year. We're going to kick off field day January 1 this year. I volunteered to be a coordinator of field day. And at this point, I've got a number of volunteers that wish to pick up specific tasks such as publicity that Tom mentioned. We had great success. Sylvia jumped in, pitched in great, and got everybody fed. And I think that was way above and beyond what one would expect. Again, I think when we set this up next year, we should be very careful to recognize the need that an operator bring his rig and a computer. I think that would greatly simplify things. I think our approach this year of getting all that antenna work done on Friday made life very simple when Saturday rolled around, because basically it was set up your station and get logged into the network and you were ready to go. The pain was gone. So we had a couple other ideas regarding the heat. I think we're going to get some box fans so that at each location we'll have a fan for the operator to keep them relatively comfortable. We're going to use some of our pop-up canopies as additional shade on the. I'm sorry?
Put it in the house.
I don't know where that voice is coming from. In any event, we've got a couple of other ideas that get things done, and I think next year is going to be a really grand time because we will start early and have things defined. And as I said, I was really pleased. We had some new members that jumped in, pitched in great. You guys did a bang up job, and I was really thrilled to see it. And by the way, teardown occurred in 1 hour, which is also a pretty magnificent event. And everything was put away neat and tidy, so it's ready for next year. So I think in spite of how we had some hiccups getting things going, it turned out pretty darn well in my estimation.
All right. Thanks, Phil. I think you could say that if it was an emergency setup, we did really well for an emergency setup at a short notice. And that part, it was very successful, even if things didn't quite work right in, hey, this didn't make to that, we ended up working around the problem. So we have a good group of problem solvers that can make it happen. And I was happy that everybody, the participation in trying to get it all set up worked out well. I agree. Well, now shifting, I've gotten rid of my field day background. I'm back to regular backyard view. Let's go on to the next topic. And that took longer than I thought, so sorry about that. Hopefully it was informative. The slides are on our N6NA website in our archive. So let me go back to share the next topic, which is messing with RTL dongles and trying to hit a satellite. And why would I do such a thing? So let me go back to sharing. And let's get rid of the field day presentation and go to the satellite one. And let's can't even see the buttons in because my screen is centered. So let me adjust here. Ignore the operator for a second. There, ooh, that's better. Is that viewable? You used to see the front page, satellites with RTLSDR and why goes. And I can say why goes. Personally, the history of my programming, I started out going to Cal State LA as a computer programmer, and I worked at the time for the Corps Engineers as a hydrotech. And I got into messing with computer stuff with the Corps of Engineers. So I became the very first computer programmer in the engineering group for setting up remote telemetry that included satellites transmitting data at various stream flow sites or dams, and then being collected by a 3-meter dish in Whittier Narrows in Southern California, and then running into computer systems and then feeding that to a dedicated line into downtown downtown Los Angeles rather, and various technologies of the day. This was probably the late 1980s. And so I started out working with a satellite system, GOES, and that costed, I don't know, several $100,000 to do for them, 3-meter dishes or giant bird baths. That's, what does that come out to? 10 feet dishes. And now I can get away with it with a small, cheap 1-meter dish and a Raspberry Pi equivalent computer. And I can get those same images now that I'm retired and do it for less than a couple $100. So I thought that technology has progressed and it's way cool that I can do it from home. It doesn't take a large expense, and it's kind of interesting. I mean, I started my career and I'm now ending my career with trying to do the same thing. Can I do it from home? And I say, yes, you can. The GOES satellite I chose is a geosynchronous. So if I point at it once, it rotates with the Earth. So I do not have to continuously aim at it. There are other satellites that kind of drift over our location, and you can view them for maybe up to 10 minutes, and then they drift out of the area. Sort of like our space station. And those are often used for things like Google Earth or Google Maps satellite view. Those images are created only in about a 10-minute window, because then the satellite is no longer over your area. And so the cool thing of weather satellites is it's such a wide images of the United States. They're kind of always over the area, but the resolution isn't as tight where you can say, oh, there's my house. If you keep zooming, you get down to roughly 2-kilometer views, so roughly a mile of view. GOES has multiple purposes. It's the E stands for environmental. It measures visible and infrared imagery for the NOAA. They do weather images of the giant purple blue globe, or in this case, they're all black and white. They do lightning maps, so they can kind of track how many are in a particular area. They monitor space weather. So if you've ever gone to spaceweather.com or Tabitha Scoes, she talks about various magnetic metrics, and those are all monitored and measured by the GOES satellites. And then not only does GOES look at the Earth, it also looks at the sun, which I was unaware of. So I learned that by researching it more and trying to get a antenna on my roof to talk to the satellite. I chose the one that was in the west. There are actually two. There's one on the east coast for the east side of the United States, and there's one over, I'd say, Hawaii on the west coast. They do the same thing. And if you want to get all the way on the other side of the world, there's one a Japanese satellite that also shares its data, and we get the views for Australia and New Zealand and Asia as well. So they all share their picture of the world and forecasting weather. So what is RTLSDR? That is interesting question. Maybe people have already played with these. These are little USB thumb drives equivalents that are little receivers. So on one end, it has this little SMA tap that you can hook to an antenna. And they're priced at various prices. I think currently the cheapest ones you can get are $30. The frequency range is from 500 kilohertz all the way up to 1.75 gigahertz for the $30 version. And for the one, unfortunately, 1.75 gigahertz, though you can receive with the cheap RTL dongle, it overheats pretty darn quick. So you need to actually get a different version. And I'll go into that in a little bit. But they all use the same chipset, the RTL 2832U. It was made, I guess, at one time to kind of watch television. And so it was used for picking up video broadcasts when things were not digital in the day. And so they were used as a hobbyist, and they ended up finding that you could use it for a lot of purposes, including receiving anything from 500 kilohertz all the way up to actually up to 2.2 gigahertz. The one I'm talking about that I ended up using that does not overheat is uses an E4000 chip as well. It's kind of a co-chip on the little teeny USB drive equivalent, which allows it to go up to 2.2 gigahertz. And it does not, I mean, the one that's cheap and $30 that has the next on this list is the Rafael Micro R820T-2. Man, it gets so hot you can barely touch it. And then it gets to the point where you can't touch it, and it nearly destroys itself to listen to these higher frequencies. So though I had one of those, I ended up buying another with the E4000, and you can touch it and not burn your fingers. It's not like a hot pad. And that's what I ended up using for the satellite range that I was interested in, which is in the 1.7 gigahertz range. And there's some others that I put on here that are out there. I didn't use them, and they're not high enough frequency for my use. But apparently there are competitors to the first two that people use for cheap USB receivers. And then, okay, that covers the RTL. Why RTL? It's the name of the chip, really. And SDR, software defined radio. What is GOES? GOES, I had to actually write it down because I always think of O as orbital, but it's geostationary, meaning it's over the equator and it rotates the same speed as the Earth. So it is always in the same position, no matter where you are in the world, pointing at it. Operational is the O instead of what I thought it was. And the E is not Earth, it's environmental. So it collects lots of environmental data. Most of it is weather, and there's other uses for it as well, including space weather. There are currently 2 in the United States. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. GOES West, they number them. So GOES West is currently the 17th version of GOES satellite. It's, if you're looking at latitude, it's at 137 degrees, looking southward. And then there's a GOES East at 72 degrees, 72 degrees pointing south. And then there's, I don't know, this map actually had a standby of GOES 14, which is considerably older. The 2 active ones are GOES 17 and GOES 16.
That'd be longitude.
Longitude. Lat is a ladder. Long is long. Okay. So those are the 2 satellites. I pointed to the one on the west, which is, I think, mostly you would say over Hawaii by location, but at the equator. So that far over and then down some. They're currently east and west. Also, the Japanese equivalent is the Himalaya that covers, as you look to the left of GOES West, basically Asia and Australia, New Zealand, and the islands down there. And these satellites are 23,300 miles above the Earth. So as you receive them, they're all DX. They're definitely going around the world once in height, easily. Next slide. They contain a bunch of sensors that are listed there. I'm going to speed up because it is getting late. But you can, these slides will be on our archive. You can say that there's, I think the interesting thing is there's a picture of one, and I think I've actually got a bigger picture. But they have basically 6 main sensors, and that's described on this page. And here's a big blow up of the satellite. They, since they're government satellites, they like to abbreviate the sensors. So there's one called GLIM, ABI, SUVI, EXIS, CIS, and MAG. I think the only one of those that you would recognize, MAG, is for magnetic field measurements. And the ABI, I can say that there is actually a new satellite for the West that was launched. It's GOES 18. It's currently being repositioned to replace the satellite that I'm currently pointing at. The good thing is that when it's in place, I will not have to repoint my antenna. It'll actually end up being pointed to this new GOES 18 satellite. It should come online in January. So if anybody does this in the future, you'll be pointing at that. And the reason they are replacing it is this ABI abbreviation. There is a camera that looks at the Earth, and it transmits 16 images at the same time at various wavelengths, and it is overheating. So they needed to get a new satellite up in place because in times of the year when the sun shifts based on the location of the satellite, it overheats the thing and it stops working. So it's got a buggy camera, and that's kind of its main uses for weather forecasting, among other things. But its primary use is NOAA, which they're interested in weather forecasting. The frequencies of satellites in general, they break them into letters. And so the very first one is the L band. That's in a frequency range of 1 to 2 gigahertz. That happens to cover the GOES satellites. And there are some other, and generally the geolocated ones, the ones that rotate with the Earth. They include the Iridium satellites. So if you wanted to eavesdrop on text messages from people's satellite phones, you might want to point at Iridium in the future. And Inmarsat is a satellite that's used for marine ships for communication. And that is also geosynchronous. So they seem to, based on how close the satellites are to the Earth, they choose L band, which is 1 to 2 gigahertz frequencies. And that actually lends nicely to the RTL dongles, which kind of max out at 2.2 gigahertz. And all these other satellites that are up there, you need to have a down converter to get these other bands. So another popular band is the S band, 2 to 4 gigahertz. They use that for monitoring ships and planes and where they are located in the world. And also the ISS. So if you were wanted to track the ISS, that's the frequency band that they would be using generally. Although we do have a 2-meter amateur radio that is used for slow scan TV that actually comes from the ISS. But their primary use is the 2 to 4 gigahertz range. Another popular band for those people that used to have the old satellite dishes that were used for television at home, or actually for networks that use the TV networks to kind of be in Europe and then transmit the images back to the United States. They use C-band satellites. So they are in the 4 to 8 gigahertz. So if you're picking a satellite, again, that you would like to monitor and you'd like to watch digitally encrypted TV, you might choose the 4 to 8 gigahertz. And if you were using these dongles, you would need a down converter of some sort. to get down to the 2 gigahertz range at least. And then finally, I threw on here the X band. That's for those deep space missions like Voyager, including the Mars missions, which is not deep space. They use the 8 to 12 gigahertz. It would be kind of cool if you could actually intercept what's being transmitted from the current satellites that are over Mars. I don't know how that would track from home. You would probably need a much bigger satellite dish than I've got, which is a 1 meter. So those are the popular satellite frequencies. You can probably do it cheaply if you can get a down converter to get it to a dongle. But the L band was perfect in that I didn't have to do any other fancy radio equipment to make it happen. Again, why did I choose GOES? I started my career working with satellites with stream gauge data with the Corps of Engineers. And I thought I could do it from home now. And I thought, oh, why not? It'd be a good ending to my career to do it from home, much cheaper. And I had some success. Hopefully I can show what I've got at the end of this. And another reason I was interested in it is a lot of people are interested in the cool little Earth photos, but I really wanted to download the over 30,000 stream gauging locations from the USGS or the Corps of Engineers or floating buoys in the ocean, because that's what I used to work with. So I was using a software called GOES Tools, and they had not decoded the data collection system data, DCS. So I ended up writing the software that people had started and finished it so that you could actually decode the data. So it gets my background in computer programming as well into this. For each station that transmits the streamflow data, they're called a data collection platform. They have a solar panel and a UHF antenna that points at the satellite. And then it probably has a rain gauge with a tipping bucket and probably temperature gauges for measuring the temperature of water flow and whatnot. So those are lots of uses. I listed some of the agencies that use data collection platforms, and the satellites in general, and that's listed as NOAA, the National Weather Service, the U.S. Geological Survey, the Corps of Engineers, Bureau of Land Management, Forestry Service, et cetera, et cetera. They all use Earth data. They're the science agencies for the government that deal with science and Earth data. And some of the data they measure, water depth, quality. So if you're interested in how bad your water is and they transmit it in real time, you can kind of decode the data and look at it. And there's some meteorological information like wind speeds at various locations. I was kind of interested in the USGS gauges. So if you wanted to know how cold the water is on the American River, and I want to go rafting and I don't want to freeze, you can kind of look it up through this, although there are websites that allow you to do the same, but it's cool to do it yourself. All this data by default is transmitted to Wallops, Virginia. They have lots of antennas, and that's an overview of the image from Wallops, Virginia. And there are backup sites, but this is the primary site for data collection. They have 15-meter dishes. So I think one on the top right is the big one. I'm using a 1-meter dish. I wouldn't even show up in this map, but you can do it. Here's the frequency plan for GOES. The part I was using, it's very busy. I'm using the HRIT and MWIN section. As part of the RTL dongles, they can scan a lot of frequencies at once in a particular bandwidth. So they can scan signals real time at a width about 3 megahertz. So for the HRIT high resolution transmission of the satellite, they use about 1 megahertz bandwidth. It works really well with RTL dongles to get all these real-time transmissions they use in that little tight area. And then I can overlap a bit and pick some of the other parts, like their housekeeping telemetry and things like that. enough of that. Oh, and I did say the uplinks for these data collection platforms are UHF. So they're in the 400 megahertz range. It's listed there as uplinks on this graph. I bet we could, if we were close enough to these little transmitters that are pointed at the satellite, we could overhear them with our handy talkies when they do transmit. The one I kind of looked at is over on William Land Park, over the pedestrian bridge on the American River, is the one nearest my house. And I bet I could find it transmitting with my handy talkie as well as receiving it through the satellite. Here is some software that is common for using these RTL dongles. You plug the little receiver into your radio, and then you load a software, and this software is SDR++, and then you tune it up with a proper antenna that's pointed at a satellite. You can get something like this. So at 1.694 megahertz, I get this big yellow band, which is about a 1.2 megahertz wide signal of lots of data coming with images of the satellites. And then over on the left is the telemetry pilot signal. And then there's one on the right that I don't know what that signal is. It's much narrower. It's about 1.65 gigahertz that I did not find from that plan what that is transmitting, but it's always there. And given how tightly it transmits, you get this big giant yellow blob of data when you look at it, just with this software. And it sounds like heck because it's digital. So you to use this, you kind of view it, but you turn the speaker off because it's a horrible squeal. But you can decode it. And then I've got some Goes lingo. We'll skip that part. I can tell you that the resolution of the Japanese satellite for weather is down to the 4 kilometer range for images, and the United States is down to 2 kilometer images. And you can view this later to find out all the buzzwords that go with satellites that are generally 3 to 4 letters, and they mean something as you get into this stuff. And so all these buzzwords are related to Goes. So my first try, I didn't want to use a dish. I thought, hey, I'm going to be cool. I'm going to get this cheap Chinese antenna that was about $10. It's got 12 dBs of gain. And I thought, oh, I could just point that at a satellite and it would work. But I was wrong. I did try that particular antenna out. I pointed it at the satellite. I could see it with like this, but I could not decode anything. So then I got smarter and I got the little 1 meter dish. And so this is kind of the parts list. This new electronics actually sells the entire receiver, antenna, and low noise amplifier together as a kit for $199. I ended up not buying it that way. I ended up buying piecemeal and made my own antenna out of a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi antenna. But essentially, I used that receiver at the top that's about $45 currently, and the low noise amplifier that has a sawtooth bandwidth filter to reduce the noise. I stuck that at the antenna, and then I used a LMR 400 coax, 50 feet between the antenna and the receiver. And so given at this frequency, I lose half my power across that 50 feet. So by putting a low noise amplifier at the very beginning of the antenna, you can amplify the heck out of it before it goes down and it gets all lost in the coax, and you can still get a signal. Skipping that. And then I had to get a computer, and that was kind of hard lately. I think in the chat, we discussed it a lot, that getting a Raspberry Pi board, it was hard to get in the United States. And they were selling at the minimum $150. And but it's a popular small little playing card sized computer. So I got, instead of a Raspberry Pi, I got a Chinese board called a Banana Pi. And it looks like very much like a Raspberry Pi. And I think I paid a little less than $85, but that's what it is currently. And you can run Linux on it. It has a built-in 16 gigabyte memory area where you can install the operating system. And then you can put in a small SD card that you can use for downloading data. And that's what I've done. So I put the operating system built into the board, And then I use an SD card for downloading the data that I get from the satellite for 85 bucks, not 150 bucks. And then the software I used is called Go's Tools. And that's, if you go to GitHub, and my URL is wrong, but GitHub contains a lot of open source projects, including Go's Tools. I think if you search for Go's Tools, you'll find the user's name of PyTurn, and he's got all the software to download it. You kind of are presented a page like this, and there's a lot of description at the bottom of his page on how you can make this happen. And so if you look up Go's Tools and you want to receive a Go's satellite image, this is a good stopping point. Kevin, I think, has found this as well. I think you probably looked at lots of GitHub projects, and this is one of them. I have a little box on the side of my house that used to contain our network box from our cable company, but we've upgraded and they don't use the box anymore. But I wanted to use the box, so I put my little Raspberry Pi equivalent Banana Pi in there. So that's what it looks like inside the box, and then I can just close the top. And then I have a network line going through plenum that's going through the hole in the bottom. And then on the bottom is plugged in the USB is the RTL dongle. And then the rest of that stuff is just old network wires that we no longer use, other than, if you recognize the green one, that's a fiber optic cable that we are plugged into for our service. So you close the box and then you ignore that. And then there's a little power cord also feeding it. It's a USB-C for making the little computer work. I found that wireless, I could not always hit the computer. I ended up making it hardwired to make it more successful on our network, because it's kind of far from our inside the house wireless router. Here is a modified 2.4 gigahertz antenna. 2.4 gigahertz is popular because that is the Wi-Fi frequency most people use. And if you get a Wi-Fi extender, like, I don't know, a mile away, you get one of these guys, but it's the wrong frequency. I'm using 1.7 gigahertz, and this is made for 2.4 gigahertz. So I can show you that on the back is the dish. At least there's a better image of it following. But what I wanted to show the receiving point. So as the focus is this little black end of the bar here. I don't know if you can see that with tie wraps around it. And then there's a front director in front of that. And in order to make 1.7 gigahertz work better, you kind of have to move the only part you can modify is the director. So I moved the director out 1.4 wavelengths out in front of it using a PVC pipe. And it has a little screw that supposedly holds that on, but I thought it was kind of weak, so I tie wrapped it. So that was my modification to the antenna. The actual antenna is in that black plastic. I couldn't get at it. It's overly too short for what I'm using it for, but it works well enough as a receiving antenna by modifying the director on the front of it. So this is kind of works as a 3-element beam for satellites. Here's what it actually looks like in full view. It comes in 2 sections and in the tiny box, and then you screw them together and ta-ta, 1 meter wide. It isn't a complete circle. It's kind of chopped at the top and the bottom. And I have it up on my chimney. Below that is our TV antenna. So we actually use a digital TV antenna. And so that is, it doesn't need to be, but that's about 17 feet up above the ground. I think that if you have a clear view of the south sky, it doesn't matter where, you can stick it in your yard. Although it's kind of unsightly, it's an ugly antenna. Maybe you could paint it black, it would look nicer. And in order to hit the satellite, you have to adjust it in a particular direction, that's left and right. And then you also have to adjust it up and down. So it has some elevation to it. So the little blue guy there on the connection to the mast pole is the elevation. And it's currently set at 42 degrees, 0.3. And how do I measure that? Do I have a protractor? I actually printed one, but actually I found that you can actually get a phone app to actually measure the that particular angle. So your phone actually has the proper pitch, so you can actually see how many degrees that the bar that's pointing at the satellite is to get it right. And then this, you can also use the phone to help point the thing, and I did because there's a website called Dish Pointer. So you pop your satellite you want to point at. That was GOES S, which is actually GOES 17, 137.2 degrees west. Put in your address on the left, and it gives you this little green line that says, okay, point this way. And so it said that magnetically, I need to point it at 141 degrees, and I need to have the elevation cranked up from horizontal at 42.3 degrees. And I really didn't have a compass, but what I did say is this website, you can zoom in kind of a satellite view of your neighborhood, and you can get a tree in your neighbor's yard or the corner of their house and eyeball the pointing of the antenna, and I don't even need a compass, and that's what I ended up doing. So even though that green line is low resolution, you can zoom in with a little plus and actually get see what you're supposed to be actually pointing at, and you find something in the distance to aim your antenna, and you'll be pretty darn close. So dishpointer.com came in really handy. And the other part, I got an app for my iPad. I didn't use a phone. That's a built-in level. So if you get a precision level app, which is free, you can download it. Not only you can get it level, but it'll give you the angle that it's running at. And that's what I used for getting the angle of the antenna set for elevation. And if you're cooler, you can get a 3D view of satellites and where they are in the sky by downloading this app for $2.99. So I did that. But it was not just because that sounds cool. I want to look at that. So I did. And if you think it's cool, go get it. You can look at any satellite in the night sky and say that's where it should be. I think a lot of people do that for looking for stars as well. So here's the dongles. The one on the left is the one I used. That's the one with the E4000 chip that doesn't overheat. The one in the middle is contains the R820T2. It overheats. I wouldn't use it for this particular frequency. And then there's the low noise amplifier. So it has a SMA connection on the top and bottom. And that's a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper to give you an idea of the size of things. I talked about a data collection platform. The US uses these to transmit streamflow data and whatnot. So this is the one near my house. This is over at William Pond, next to the pedestrian bridge. So it has this Yagi antenna pointed up at the satellite, pointing south at UHF frequencies, because transmitting is 400 megahertz and downloading is 1.7 gigahertz. And that little round box is the transmitter and the computer that operates transmitting the data that they'd like to send. Here's a closer view of it. At the top, I think used to be a solar panel, but I think people have been stealing it. So they ended up sneakily putting the solar panel on the backside so you can't see it from the bridge. But I think it looks like at one time they had a solar panel right on the top where it's missing. And so that's how they power the thing. And so it has batteries and solar panel. And my next thought of Sylvia also thought is, what's the next satellite to mess with? The Webb Space Telescope would be kind of cool. So maybe that would be a next try to try and mess with other satellites to think about and maybe see what galaxies you can view. So next is going to try and show you if it's going to work, what this stuff looks like. So this will bring up a website that's seeable. Let me make it bigger. So you should see a GOES tool panel if it's succeeded. Is that correct? Good, thumbs up, GOES tool panel.
Yep, that's good.
All right, so this time of day, let's go with the, let's keep rid of this. It keeps covering my image. There we go. The Japanese satellite, a view of the Earth. So here's the big ball. You can actually zoom these a lot. So this the problem with doing it now is it's dark. So it's some of these images are hard to see, but they're actually getting light. So all the images that come from the satellites are in black and white. That's the Australian view. The Western view is, let me scroll down here a bit more, if I can. That's disappointing. Trapped. All right, well, let's go with this view. This should show a small portion of the United States. They do enhanced images. So there's California, Nevada, Utah, and some other states. And they overlay with color the tops of clouds. So it's kind of like radar images. When it's raining like crazy, it turns red, and I guess low intensity rain is blue. So this is green intensity, if you will, from the satellite view of visible light. This would be the United States. This would be the West view, a little bigger, although it's dark. Let me see if I can, this might take some time to animate it. I have to go back in time to when we can actually see something. So this should, if it works, and actually generate an image on my little Raspberry Pi. It'll make an animated view of what was going on. Or it'll just say generating and annoying me.
Hey, Tom, are you continuously downloading data? Is that what you're doing with the Pi?
Yeah, I'm 24 hours all the time. So as it got dark, we started losing image. So this is 3 hours back. They kind of choose parts of the United States in these what they call meso views, where rain is actually happening. So they concentrate on, apparently now that we're having monsoons, there's more weather to the west south of us. And so that's, I could go back and farther in time and you would be actually light, but it's pretty impressive during the daytime. I should have had some ready to go, not doing a live demo. There is also, there's world views all the time. This is kind of a zoomed of the United States, of the giant world view that actually looks better on the Japanese satellite, and they colorize it, what they call fake color. And so I kind of actually like the Earth being blue. So, and the ground being dirt and green and whatnot. Unfortunately, I shouldn't have animated it. Let me do it again. So the big ball. There's also various there's various fax stuff that is also uploaded that you may have seen at lower frequency transmissions. That is also part of the weather service. And then there's also a variety of text and data collection stuff. And given that it's late, I'll skip it because just to say that you can do it. And I will actually maybe include a few more slides of actual images of what the data looks like. And you can actually get temperatures for the stream flow or elevations to know how high the lake is at Folsom Lake and things like that on the fly, which is kind of nice. So let me unshare, finish up. Anyway, that's it. Any questions about messing with satellites with cheap hardware? It can be done.
Yeah, I have one suggestion that I've done in the past to avoid having to use a coaxial cable is you can put the dongle itself right at the feed point of the dish and run a USB cable from that over to your computer. USB cables you can run several meters long and you'll have no deterioration because all of the RF processing is being done right at the feed point. I don't know if you would consider trying that. That might be something. I know some people actually put the computer right at the feed point also, the dongle and the little Raspberry Pi there, and then they connect to the Raspberry Pi over Ethernet and run it headless. So that would be another option to have everything right up at the feed point.
Yeah, I'm running it headless. I did use a USB extender. So I actually had 15 feet. And then I ran it to the antenna, and basically I had the receiver and the low noise amplifier right at the antenna. And I put the Raspberry Pi. Right now we've had 100 degrees and it's rough on the computer. So I've had it down, not on the roof, and out of the weather too. But the downside was, as I moved the USB cable around, I would either get a signal, or by wherever I was placing it, I would lose the signal entirely. It wouldn't decode. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get smart. I'm going to put beads on it. So I put beads on it. And that didn't really help either. It was just really where I placed it. And so given how unstable it was, I ended up saying, okay, let's go back with my original lossy cable and try it. And so I just put the LNA at the top and the receiver on the other end of the coax. And that actually made it stable. So I was saying, okay, good. I'd rather have stable and not optimized than if the wind blew the cable just the right way, it would lose signal. So I tried both ways. I can say that I tried a lot of things. I mean, the initial antenna I had up there, I was getting some success, but not well enough. And some of my best work I actually have on Facebook. But you don't know the struggles of getting it to work.
Tom,
Yes.
this is Hank. I have a free-to-air antenna on my roof. It's probably, the dish probably wouldn't work. The frequency would be all wrong. But I'm thinking that the mechanism for rotating that thing, I can tilt that, I can go left and right. Would that be of any use to something like this?
I've got a direct TV dish, or at least I did until we tossed it. And I thought, oh, what can we use that for? And so that's that C-band dish, so 5 gigahertz range. And it wasn't useful for this project. And it was a fixed dish as well. So we have some club members that actually have the ability to rotate by elevation and direction, so they can track satellites.
Yeah.
I wanted to do the easiest thing possible, which was to choose a satellite that didn't move. And so that's what I did. So I could point it once and then just leave it. And that's where, we were asking if I could view it by 24 hours. I can receive it 24 hours. These ones that move around, your view is only for a short period of time, maybe 10 minutes at most. But yeah, I'm interested in, I had the stupid dish, I was figuring out if I could use it for something, but I didn't end up using it for anything so far.
Well, the free-to-air dish is smaller than the satellite TV dish is. It's only about, I don't know, maybe 15, 16 inches in diameter or something like that.
Yeah, I think the DirecTV dish is maybe a little bit longer than a foot.
Yeah.
And the 1 meter dish is 3 feet, but it's not round, so it's chopped.
Right.
So it is
But
unsightly, but so is my chimney. So neighbors haven't complained that, ew, your ugly antennas up there.
What I was thinking of was the ability to do azimuth as well as elevation movements on the thing.
Yeah, in fact, you could actually, I could point it at the East Coast version of GOES. I could point it at a Marsat. I could point it at, well, a variety of geosynchronous just by, because they're all different angles based on where we're located. So you'd have to not only adjust the elevation, but you'd also have to point the direction. So even geosynchronously, if I wanted to monitor more than one satellite with one antenna, that would be very useful.
Yeah, I'll have to play with it and see.
So the antenna by itself, I ended up paying, there's a guy in Florida that bought a bazillion of them from China. And I'm sure he got them for $10 a unit, but he ended up charging $50 a unit. So I thought an okay deal for, if you research it. They generally run $150 markup. So we got a guy that wasn't as greedy and was selling them for 50. I wish I could have used my DirecTV dish. I wanted, because I had one. I could reuse it.
Tom, did you play around with the NOAA sats on 137 megahertz as well? They might be like a cheaper and easier option for people if they want to take a look. But I know the image quality is nowhere near as good as what you've got with this one.
I would think 137, you can use any dongle because you're not going to overheat. And you could probably get away with just a vertical antenna rather than
I've tried it.
high gain.
I've tried it just on using my 2 meter vertical, and you can get something. It's not great. Like as it comes over, you get like about there's about like 50 seconds in the middle where I get like a really good signal, and then either side of that I get hardly anything.
Yeah, the images for that low stuff is they use fax equivalent, so they were originally black and white.
Yeah.
So they look like they came out across in a fax machine,
Yeah,
and then they're text. And so yeah, I wanted to show those products, but when I was looking at my screen, I go, oh, I can't. My screen is too tiny. I should have done it on a different computer so I could actually get into that. But you've seen them. They're the same as the NOAA.
Yeah,
On the low frequencies. The big satellite images are actually the cool part.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they actually relay all that stuff to the satellite and back down. The GO stuff actually generates the images not only of the Earth, but they also have images of the sun. So I don't know if Tabitha SCO talks about stereo 1 and stereo 2. Actually, we have these GO satellites are pointing at the sun the whole time, and they're transmitting video to Earth all the time, 24 hours. Although the bandwidth is 11 megahertz wide, so it's beyond my little RTL dongle. You can probably get 3 megahertz out of those. You need a better receiver, something that would cost something probably. It's fun. It worked. It's exciting to try it, and it works. I was frustrated with the original antenna and USB stuff, but I didn't give up. Any other questions? I think we're long, so apologies. 2 presentations is probably too much. All right, good. Back to you, Kevin.
All right, cool. Thanks, Tom. That was really interesting. Thanks. I had a couple of extra items. I should have mentioned these earlier. The last board meeting, we had a couple of things we wanted to bring up. The first one, we were looking to see if anyone would volunteer a couple of weekends for us to move the club trailer somewhere, like closer to a more central location in SAC somewhere, so we can get a group of us over there to get inside and do some reorganization. So if you've got like a driveway where you wouldn't mind us pulling up the trailer and leaving there for a couple of weekends, could you send us an email at contact@n6na.org, let us know, and then we can sort something out. And then the other couple of items were, we did decide that we're going to restart with our in-person meetings starting next month, August. So for our board meetings and our club meetings, we're going to start in person again, and we're going to try and do a hybrid format. So we'll do Zoom as well at the same time, but for those who wish to attend in person, you can come along in person, or if you want to connect just over Zoom, you can do that too. So we're going to start doing that. We'll share more details when we get the locations finalized and sorted out, but that's coming up for next month. The other thing we talked about, Phil, did you want to talk about the coffee and breakfast meetings? Is Phil still on, or did Phil drop? He might have dropped.
The idea was that we wanted to get more in-person contact as a club. It was kind of nice to have field day and meet people that we hadn't met, but we could make it easier by meeting more often, by doing a coffee get together with hams that can do so. So we're thinking about getting an inaugural version of coffee with hams, or N6NA hams, if you will, to say hello and reconnect with people, just like we would like to do with our general meetings.
Cool, yeah. So when we've got those details sorted out as well, we'll send out an update or talk about it in one of our upcoming club meetings and share the details and let you know what we're planning. So that's coming up too. I think that's all I had. Yeah. Was there anything else? Any other comments or questions or news items or anything from anyone before we wrap up? All right, very quiet group tonight. All right. Well, thanks, Tom. Thanks for doing the main presentation tonight. Both topics. It's a 2-topic night, so that was good.
We started out with more people. I think I put them to sleep by now. So we're down to the stubborn people that don't want to go away.
Nicely
Money's
done.
worth.
Nicely done, Tom. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thanks. Good job. All right, and we'll have the recording up on YouTube as well, so we'll share that as soon as it's ready. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Have a good evening, and we'll catch up with you soon. All right. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.